Hi there, word explorers. Welcome to another exciting adventure in the world of language. Today we're going to uncover the secrets of one of the most dynamic parts of speech verbs. Bill Nye here, your trusty guide to the amazing world of language. Just like in science, where we explore the wonders of the universe, in language we explore the wonders of words. And verbs are like the rocket fuel that propels our sentences into action. Today, we're diving into the exciting realm of verbs. Verbs are the words that bring our sentences to life. They tell us what someone or something is doing, whether it's running, jumping, dancing, or even thinking. Verbs are at the heart of it all. Buckle up because it's going to be a thrilling ride. Imagine verbs as the engines of our language, driving the action and making everything more exciting. Without verbs, our sentences would be like a roller coaster stuck at the top. No fun at all. Imagine a world without verbs. It would be like a movie without any action scenes, or a book where nothing ever happens. Pretty dull, right? Verbs are what make our stories and conversations interesting and full of life. No jumping, no singing, no laughing. Sounds pretty boring, right? Without verbs, we wouldn't be able to express all the fun and exciting things we do every day. Our language would be flat and lifeless. Verbs are the action heroes of our sentences, making our language come alive. Just like superheroes, verbs have the power to transform our words and give them energy and excitement. They are the true stars of our linguistic adventures. Verbs help us describe all the wonderful things we do and experience every single day. From cooking a delicious meal to playing our favorite games, verbs are there to capture every moment and make it memorable. So let's put on our explorer hats and discover the magic of verbs together. We'll learn how to spot them, use them, and appreciate the incredible role they play in our language. Get ready for an action-packed journey into the world of verbs. Now, let's talk about a special type of verbs called modal verbs. These verbs, like can, will, and must, help us express necessity, possibility, and ability. For example, I can swim, she will dance, and you must listen. Modal verbs are different from auxiliary verbs, which are used to form different tenses, moods, and voices of other verbs. For instance, in she is running, the word is an auxiliary verb helping to form the present continuous tense. Understanding the difference between modal and auxiliary verbs helps us use them correctly and make our sentences more precise and expressive. So, let's continue our adventure and explore the fascinating world of verbs together. But first things first, what exactly do verbs do? Well, they're like the superstars of our sentences, showing us what's happening. They tell us what someone or something is doing, whether it's running, sleeping, thinking, or even just existing. Without verbs, our sentences would be like cars without engines, going nowhere fast. So the next time you see a verb, give it a high five. It's working hard to make our language interesting and full of life. Let's kick things off with the most energetic type of verb-action verbs. These verbs are all about movement and doing stuff. Think about all the amazing things you do every day. Running, jumping, playing, eating, sleeping. These are all action verbs in action. Action verbs make our sentences exciting and full of energy, just like a burst of confetti. They paint a vivid picture in our minds and help us understand what's going on. Now let's meet the linking verbs. These verbs are like bridges, connecting the subject of a sentence to a description. Instead of showing action, they describe a state of being or tell us more about the subject. For example, the cat is fluffy or the flowers smell sweet. See how the linking verbs is and smell connect the subject to a description? They help us paint a more detailed picture in our minds. helpers that make our sentences shine. Section 6. Passing the action transitive verbs in action. Hold on tight because we're about to explore transitive verbs. These action verbs are all about passing the action from the subject to the object. Think of it like throwing a ball. The action of throwing goes from you, the subject, to the ball, the object. For example, the dog chased the cat. Transitive verbs always have an object receiving the action, making our sentences more dynamic and exciting. They show us the relationship between different things in a sentence. Section 7. Keeping it to ourselves. Intransitive verbs. Now, let's meet the independent intransitive verbs. These action verbs are perfectly happy doing their own thing without needing an object to receive the action. Think of it like dancing. You don't need anything else to dance except yourself. For example, the birds sing or the children laughed. Intransitive verbs are all about expressing action without needing anything else, making our sentences simple and to the point. They help us focus on the subject and their action. Friends who always color inside the lines. Section 9. Irregular verbs, the rebellious wordsmiths. And finally, let's meet the rebels of the verb world. Irregular verbs. These verbs are like the mavericks of the language, always ready to break the mold and do things their own way. They don't conform to the usual rules, and that's what makes them so fascinating. These verbs like to do things their own way and don't follow the usual rules for forming the past tense. While most verbs simply add d or ed to form their past tense, irregular verbs take a different path. They transform themselves in unique and often unpredictable ways. Instead of adding d or ed, they transform themselves in unique ways. This transformation can be quite dramatic, changing the verb entirely. For instance, the verb go doesn't just become goed like you might expect. Instead, it turns into went, a completely different word. For example, go becomes went and eat becomes ate. These changes might seem confusing at first, but they add a rich texture to our language. Imagine if every verb followed the same pattern. Our sentences would be much less interesting. Irregular verbs might seem a bit tricky at first, but they add spice and personality to our language. They make our conversations more dynamic and engaging. Think of them as the colorful characters in a story, each with their own unique quirks and traits. They're like the friends who always have a surprise up their sleeve, keeping us on our toes. Just when you think you have the rules figured out, an irregular verb comes along to remind you that language is full of surprises. So there you have it, word explorers. Irregular verbs are the adventurers of the verb world, always ready to take you on a new linguistic journey. They challenge us to think differently and embrace the unexpected. Verbs are the heart and soul of our sentences, making our language come alive with action, description, and excitement. Without verbs, our sentences would be static and lifeless. They are the engines that drive our communication, giving it energy and direction. Keep exploring the wonderful world of words, and remember, language is a playground, so have fun with it. Just like on a playground, there are rules to follow, but there's also plenty of room for creativity and fun. So go ahead, play with words, experiment with sentences, and enjoy the endless possibilities that language offers.